I think that I lived a lot of my life feeling like I wasn't held. I had to fight for survival. I was like gripping on so tight. Mm-hmm. And it's just like this amazing, because that's really the analogy I would say. Like, I feel like I was like holding on for dear life. And so it's this idea that perhaps, like everything we're gripping on for dear life with, like we're just holding on so tight. But when it's like, it brings me back to like being a little kid. And like, I almost drowned when I was 3 and my dad saved me. And he just held me in the water. Like, I was like, I was under the water. And of course, Bianca, my mom has a picture of my dad holding me in the water right after. And like, he was like, we weren't going to take you out of the water because we wanted you to know that you were safe. Each breath is a chance to begin again. Each tiny expression of love and every thought that stretches a heart beyond its storied armor is a beginning. May we give ourselves boundless grace and infinity chances at loving ourselves through the fog of our own disappointments. May we have the courage to face our heartbreak in all its glory, for the break cannot exist without the love.
Help Me See is a podcast that redefines the word vision through vulnerable and real conversations, my own private introspective ramblings about the things that I think about in the wee hours of the morning, and my deep core belief that your nothingness is your everything, and all you have to do is see. I'm Bianca Mora. I'm your host. I am an educator, a photographic artist, and I believe that your daily photo habit can be the key to unlocking the ability to be more present in your everyday life and live deeper into your intention and purpose. We're not about the small talk here. Grab your coffee, get cozy, and let's talk. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Help Me See. Whew, this one is delayed. I have been traveling, and I'm coming back after a couple week hiatus with a really, really special episode with one of my beloved coaches, Amber Lilyestrom. She is a branding strategist, a business mentor, an author, a keynote speaker, a poet. She is just a unicorn of a human being. And I mean, in every sense of the word. And I cannot wait to be able to share her voice with you. I have been a part of her world now for, 2 years. I don't even remember. I don't remember before. But I have had the privilege of being in the same room with her. I've gone to her in-person retreat. I've been on countless Zoom calls with her, and she is just someone that's near and dear to my heart. And during our talk, the basis of our talk was supposed to be about, it was about how honoring yourself is the most generous thing you can do for others, and how we can get so caught up in the spiral of sacrificing yourself and your wants and needs and your desires and your dreams in the name of the people you care most about. But really, the best thing you can do for them is whatever the best thing is for you. And she is a gorgeous example of that. And we ended up talking about how her coaching and business mentoring is another form of what we do with photographs, of taking a photograph of something and saying, look at this, look at you. That's what she does with her words. And actually, fun fact, Amber started out as a photographer. She was a photographer years ago, and her parents were also photographers. And I stumbled upon some discoveries about her past that I wasn't aware of. That was so cool and so exciting. And I'm just so excited to bring this conversation to you. I sound a little nasally because I got sick towards the end of my travels. it's okay. We're here. We're doing the thing. I'm excited to get back in the swing of things. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts about my conversation with Amber. Look in the show notes to learn more about Amber and get in her world. I'm going to put her website, her Instagram, everything you need to know to get in touch with her if you just find yourself needing some more Amber in your life. And before I get into the show, I wanted to let you know that my new program, new coaching offerings around photographic arts is coming out very, very soon. So if you are loving the conversations, the type of conversations that are had on this podcast, and you are a photographic artist that is looking to learn more about seeing the picture under the picture, about really honoring your own sacred vision and getting to feel like creation is freedom rather than constraint, go ahead and sign up for the waitlist and you will be one of the first to know. If you are not a photographic artist, I also have a course on seeing for your photographic practice. And that is just a fancy word for your daily photo habit, the pictures you take every day. It's really a deep dive into making the unconscious conscious in the pictures that you take of your daily life. I have a bunch more people that have been signing up for that course, and I'm so excited to see it spreading. So if you want to learn more about that course, it's called Manifest Your Memories. You can find more information in the show notes there as well. Okay, without further ado, and I can't talk anymore anyway because I am getting out of breath. Here is Amber.
Hi.
Thank you for your patience, ma'am.
Oh my goodness. I was laughing to myself because I was like, this is the perfect start of this conversation. This is the perfect start of this conversation. And it also feels really weird that this is the first time we're talking one-on-one because I feel like you're like one of my closest friends.
Oh my gosh, I know. There's always people around. We're trying to have our alone time. Jeez.
Yeah. We only have our alone time in meme world.
I know. It's so true. Like dying laughing at. I just love your sense of humor so much because it's so effing weird like mine. And like I can unleash the fullness of the weirdness with you and just know you completely understand it.
I know I have such like FOMO of like your inside jokes with Kristen because I'm like, I know I would find that so funny.
You really would. You really would. Oh my gosh. We are the weirdest people on the planet and I'm obsessed.
Wouldn't have it any other way. Mm-hmm. So I just start recording because I always do an intro about whoever before. So we don't have to do that. But I want to start by being like, okay, exactly what happened right before this conversation is why we're having this conversation. So yesterday, I'm traveling. I'm in California on a trip and I had a terrible migraine, like shaking and vomiting.
Oh no.
And like, I was thinking to myself, like, I can't believe I'm going to have to cancel this conversation today. Like that was going through my mind. And then I realized during that, which I feel better now, which is obviously why I'm here, like, wow, before, whatever before was, I don't know, last year, a year and a half ago, I don't even know how long. I know it wouldn't have even crossed my mind to cancel. I would have been like, how am I going to be able to disguise how I feel?
Yeah.
Keep this commitment type of thing. And I laughed when I like woke up to your, I'm on West Coast time now. So I woke up to your message and it was like, hey, do you mind pushing this 15 minutes so I can like pee and like get a drink and before our talk? And I'm like, like such a little thing that I feel like a lot of people wouldn't even think to do. They're just like, oh, I'm going to have to hop off this call and immediately go on this call.
Oh my gosh, I know. Ask, like, what are we?
What are we? This little like,
what do we think?
And what does that do too? Is like giving you that time to reset and give yourself space will only help you to show up more powerfully in this conversation. So like, of course, I have to take myself off because I get distracted by my own Italian hand movements. So of course I was like, this is what we're talking about today, how prioritizing yourself can be the most generous thing you can do for other people. And the thing about this is that I think it's so funny because it can feel like such a heavy lift to embark on that. But doing it in the smallest places and spaces like this, 15 minutes, can I have 15 more minutes? Or like yesterday, just knowing, like taking the pressure off, I must get better, to like, if I'm not better, I just have to cancel. That's it.
Or
like, that is it.
Or reschedule.
Or reschedule, like that's it.
Because there's like infinite amounts of time that we could just do it later.
Infinite amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to me, one of the things, because we're on Help Me See podcast, thing that freaks me out thoroughly is this idea of, how could I not have seen that? Like, how could I say, it freaks me out to think only up until this year.
Oh yeah.
Could I have seen that? So what I want to start on, like in this conversation, is like, how do you even get to the point where you're able to uncover so many choices? Because that is like one of the biggest gifts that you give, like every single week or every other week, whenever we have our coaching calls, is that like, you just open up possibility and choice. You're like, but actually there are these choices. Like, how did you get to the point where you're like, oh, I see so much room for choosing me in my life and in my business?
Yeah. By not, by suffering, by living into the narrow option only, by suffering greatly for really long periods of time, and then working with a mentor in a really intimate and ongoing capacity on my stuff. A million different things that helped me to reveal that the answer for all of the things I was suffering from and all of the afflictions I was bringing to those conversations always seemed to be the same answer. Lighten up, trust the cosmic plan, understand that if it was meant to be, it would have. And everyone is doing the best they can with the resources they have available to them in any given moment, even you. I really hated that last part. And it was a real hard pill to swallow, but it was like, but I could do it better. But I could be doing it better. I could be more succinct. I could find a way to make my bladder not have to fill up between 3 hours of calls between talking to Bianca and my clients before that.
I could simply dehydrate myself. It'll be fine.
I could just not drink water, and not meet that human need. And it's like, how ludicrous, how ludicrous. And I think the other thing is, I stopped taking myself so seriously, part one. And then part two, I gave myself permission to completely just step off of the pedestal, right? Like this idea of like who I have to be for people, and just understand that who I am has to be enough, because there's just no more for me to give. And if that disappoints people, well, then they're the one that's disappointed. Like they're the one that has to grapple with the feeling of disappointment, not me. Trust me, I've got plenty of other stuff that I have to deal with within my own inner workings. But, someone else's disappointment, what I've learned too, Bianca, is like we overinflate that as a reflection of our own inner criticisms. And 9 times out of 10, it's like exactly what you said. Like, yeah, of course we can just start 15 minutes later. And actually I took 17 minutes because I walked out on the dock and wanted to have an experience of being outside for a second before I came back in to be with you. And so I was like, well, it's with 17 minutes. And you know what? Look, nothing burned down. We're here. Everything's here. Fine. Yeah. And my bladder is like completely empty now. And I'm going to refill it up while we talk.
What? Wow. What? Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Okay. So what, and I think that we have to contextualize this a little bit more. I'd like to dive into like the story of where that began and how you parted your career. Cause I don't, just for everyone that doesn't know, but, my first thing is, it's funny because right now I'm taking an NLP certification course, and it's been the most off the cuff thing I've ever done. Never had any interest in it before. It's like so many times I'm in class, I'm like, why am I here? How did I get here? But it's funny how it has really illuminated so much of my world. It's like one of the things I just worked on a couple of days ago was my intense fear of disappointing someone, of not meeting an expectation when there has been no traumatic experience for me around that.
Right.
Anyway, so there's a rabbit hole there, but you said their disappointment like is for them to deal with. How did you get to the point where you could draw that line and be like, that's them, that's not me? How do you untangle from that?
Because I think that I faced the stories that I had about other people's experiences head on and actually went into them to discern, was that even true? Or was it a hologram, right? Like some sort of holographic projection of my own comprehension. And the reality is of course it was, because all I can see through is my own lens. So like I experience you through the lens of me. And that's not going to be the same. Like our friend Kristen's going to see you differently because she's seeing you through her lens and she's a different person. And so I got to this place of like that sort of, that wormhole where and then that moment where you like look at, that cat gif where it's like this cat and he's going, well, you guys don't know if you can see the video, but he's like this, he's like vibrating his eyes. And like the cosmos are behind him. Like you have that cat gif moment where you realize like nobody has ever met you in the way that you understand yourself ever, because all they can do is meet you through their own understanding. And so that just trips me out to think about how much I've struggled and made all these definitions and all these like insecurities and these shortcomings and all. And it's like, oh my gosh, it was you the whole time.
It's like the Inception movie or whatever. You're like, oh, what is real?
It really is the Matrix. Right. And so that just getting to the real base, and you and I, our brains work very similarly. Like I like to go to that existential weird place where most people don't like to spend a lot of time, like the echo chamber of my own existence. I love going there and then just looking at this stuff and tripping out on it and realizing that we're all these individual beings who are united and connected and unified in these miraculous circumstances that we have 0% control over, though we like to think that we do because our human brain likes to do that. And actually, it's all an effing miracle. And just the fact that we're alive is a miracle. And oh my God, like, did you see that tree and what it was doing and how the wind was blowing those leaves? And I'm worried about like what people are going to think of my outfit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something, recognizing the opportunities for more like daily miracles, or like seeing the sacredness of your day-to-day. Like the fact that you're like, oh wait, I went to pee. Oh wait, I want to walk out on the dock. You're able to infuse this very intentional moment in your day through just the most minimal effort of doing that. And I think like sometimes we think that it has to look like this big lift, but really you're only able to make the big lifts by the snowball effect that happens from like the little choices. And that's why I love, like photographically speaking, that's why I love using the camera as a way of just saying this. Like, it's not, I don't even care. I say the picture doesn't matter. Like, it really isn't the point. I love beautiful pictures, of course. It doesn't matter. Like, the picture's not the point. It's the holding it up, seeing that there's everything around you, but you are pointing this right here, and you are taking a moment and you're looking at that.
Which will never exist again in time.
No,
ever,
it gives
ever
me
in history.
goosebumps every time. I don't care if you're looking at a steamy pile of dog poop. Like, for some reason, you're looking at it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's just incredible.
I agree. And I go, it's miraculous to sit in this chair and have this conversation with you. Like, what the hell? How the heck do we even know each other? Why? It's so crazy. Like, when you really think about that, because you did good marketing. Not really. Like I do great marketing all the time, but it didn't translate into a relationship like this connection, this soul connection, And so I think about like, why are my children, and my husband, and my best friend, my best friend. And I mean, I could just go. And so all of those questions lead you back to like, I'm going to be worried about somebody being disappointed in me. Like, I'm allowed to make mistakes and be human in the same ways that they are. And also, like, if I'm disappointed in somebody else, because that is helpful to go to that experience. Like, well, what does it feel like to be disappointed that something didn't go the way that you wanted to, or somebody made a different decision and it didn't go your way or whatever? It's like, well, again, if it was meant to, then it probably would have, right? Like John Connolly, who teaches rapid resolution therapy, he has this thing. He says, if it could have been different, then it would have been. And so, and that's a tough pill to swallow. I'm like, oh, and so he really will like school you on it and saying like, Amber, if I understand that the man who abused you as a little girl, like that wasn't right. But if it could have been different, it would have been different. And I spent a lot of years just being like, well, he should have known better and he shouldn't have done that and he shouldn't have hurt me. And if he had gotten the help that he needed and he did it, and it's like, but then you trap yourself there. And I think that's a big part of my own unraveling, like in my infertility story and stuff. It's been really, really painful. And like, I'm still working on it, you know, all the time. It's like, well, maybe if I didn't exercise as much as I did playing soccer at like I did, then I wouldn't have had this when I wouldn't have this. And then I would have been able to get pregnant. And it's like, oh my gosh, like that is so much pressure. And so that sentence, I found it to be really liberating, you know, because here's the thing, like we can all think of examples of things we wish we could go back and change. And I'm not even going to try to do the, like, there was a silver lining. No, I'm not trying to do that at all. Like really hard shit happens, painful, terrible things happen. And if it could have been different, then it would have been. And you taking ownership for every dimension of the things that you couldn't influence or change and still can't to this day is causing you so much pain. So much pain. And it's like, do you want to be free? Do you want to at least get to the shore of free?
Yeah.
Because I don't know how we keep going on punishing ourselves so deeply with this stuff.
But you know, what's fascinating to me is that, and something that I didn't realize until recently, is how, like, I cognitively realized it, but like physically realized it, how painful it can be to acknowledge even your empowering choices. Yeah. Because it means that you have to break out of this identity of like, or like, you have to acknowledge that you can move on from something that you have, it's been so terribly tied into your identity for so long that it's just part of you. And you're like, if I, like, it makes me want to cry. It's like, if I let myself let go of this terrible thing that's been weighing me down, what does that mean about all of these years of my life?
I know.
It's like, I came to this realization once that like, recently I realized this fear, this debilitating dread fear that I have, learned from my father. I always knew that, but like, to me, fear has meant that means I love you. If I'm scared shitless about what could happen, and if I'm not always trying to be 47 steps ahead and like planning out like how I will be able to react or prevent or whatever, all of this, and like base my whole life around fear, then that means I don't care. That means I'm betraying my upbringing because I know that my dad's fear means he loves me. And I'm like, wow, what happens if I put that down? I don't know. It's like, I act like I've been like my whole life, I've been like shackled and anchored with the fear, but really I've been holding it so tight. Like I can't put it down. What helped you put down? Was there, I know you have this whole incredible birth story. What would you say was your kind of like inflection point? Because the only reason that like, and I'm so fucking grateful for you. The only reason I've been able to expand and open through you is for you to ignore everyone else and focus on you. Because I would have never been attracted to you if you wouldn't have just been in your truth.
Yeah. Thanks.
So what started it? Like, what was that?
It feels good for all the pain in the between. So my ego likes that, Bianca. So thanks for that. Little bite. You know, my mom is the same way with her worrying. So her form or communication of love is I always worry about you. And then I'm like, Mom, you know, I've tried to like go against it. And then she's like, nope, for as long as I'm alive, I will be worried about you. I'm like, okay, that is her language of love. Yeah. So like her frame of love is I worry about you all the time and I have to tell you about it. And I can even feel my solar plexus, so my chakras, right? I can feel like in there, this like instability because it's a power, it's unstable power. And it's like, okay, but it feels empowered for her. Doesn't feel resonant for me. Like persistently worrying about my children, which I do also, by the way. I think that there's something about motherhood, this like primal hit of your kids, keeping them alive is like your life's work. And it's not easy. Like it's not easy. And it's like what happens in your body and the anxiety. And I just even noticed in the little ways, like Ben, how my husband can easily just like wrestle with the kids and throw them around. And I was like trying to wrestle with Alex the other day. I was like trying to like be rough with him. And I was like, I can't do this. like, I'm incapable of being rough with you. I'm just like, I'm going to throw you on the couch, and my hands were like this. And I placed him on the couch.
He's like, Mom, you're so boring.
He's just like, okay. And I'm like, all right, I'll do it again. And I just placed him on. I'm like, I cannot potentially injure your body in any way, shape, or form, or take that risk. I'm not capable of doing it. I'm just trying. He was like, this is the dumbest wrestling ever, Mom. I could tell he was like, I'm not even. Where's Dad?
Where's Dad?
Because Ben doesn't care, it's like, but it's good. It's important. I'm so grateful they have a dad for that, because he will just throw them across the room and somehow they don't get hurt. I mean, sometimes they do, but mostly they don't. So yeah, I think that, as far as like inflection points, it's just a collection of these things. It's that recognition of, oh, Mom loves me through her worry. Oh, that's so interesting, right? It's like creating these new narratives around it. And instead of being like, geez, my mom doesn't really love me that much, because the way she's showing me she loves me is by cooking me food and buying me things that I don't need and telling me how worried she is about me. But that is literally like, that's her way. That is her devotion to me. Like, that's her expression of deep love for her children. Whoa. And I had to learn how to see through these different lenses and decode that a little bit. And like, again, loosen up, right? Pull out the view, look at a broader perspective. And I think in doing that, it has really helped me chill the fuck out, part one. Two, be able to receive love in more multidimensional ways. And then C, provide more love, like give more love, be more loving. Yeah, it's like stand by that ideology of all of you is welcome here, which is like the words we have in our mudroom right over the door. And it's like I look at that and I go, well, is that true though, Amber? Like, is that actually true? Like, is the part of you that has struggled to get pregnant welcome here? Like, is the part of you that is aging right now welcome here? Is the part of you that like has a bum knee sometimes, or doesn't feel like she says all the right words, or like, is she welcome here? Is the one who doesn't have all the followers or whose book isn't a bestselling, is she welcome in here? Like, I readily enter those kinds of conversations around the places where I feel myself restrict or constrict or withhold. Mm-hmm. And I work on it, because I don't want to live that way. And but I also want to say, it's not like on the other side of that, it's all sunshine and rainbows, that I don't like still get frustrated with certain things or still feel, I had a big session with my mentor just recently. And one of the things we were talking about was, this pass fail idea. And she says, it's so interesting that your unconscious mind just wants to go to failure as like a set point. And so she asked me this question. I'm just trying to get to it. She said, why is there a bar? I was like, oh man, I just sat there for a long time because I really didn't want to answer it. Yeah, which is always like the best mentorship session where it's just cold silence.
Silence.
Like, why is there a bar? And it's like, because it's all I've ever known. I mean, it's all I've ever known. Of course, there's a standard, there's a metric, there's a ruler, there's something I'm measuring up against. And yet I know, right, in the meat of that conversation, I can quickly get to the authentic me doesn't actually abide by any of that. Like the true me wrote the poetry book to write the poetry book, not to receive any accolades at all. Like truly, that's the truth. Like you can get to like the marrow of that kind of truth. You can feel it. It's like I took the picture to take the picture because I wanted to experience the act of taking the picture. And, and I also, it's important to say here too, to the listeners, I was also a portrait photographer and wedding photographer for a period before I started my business coaching business. And my parents were photographers. And I think I just said this on a stage, and I was like having this existential.
I didn't know your parents were photographers.
Yeah. My mom was they're really, really gifted. I have a lot of their work around the house here.
Wow.
And my dad was very much like more into landscapes, like sunrise, sunset. Like I have these cool pictures my dad did. water ripples with a sunset, like from the 70s. It's just so cool.
Oh my
and then
God.
my mom actually was published in Powder Magazine. She took pictures of skiers like coming down the slopes and races and stuff. And she ended up having a photography business where she contracted out photographers to go out and do photographs for corporate companies. She's a baller. Like, my mom was also a model. She was a Playboy bunny back in the 70s at the Boston Club. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, just dropping these bombs on me mid-conversation as an aside.
Vic and Ellie were like, they were a vibe. Let's just put, my parents were like babes, total babes.
Gosh.
Yeah. So they were cool. And, you know, all my whole life, I remember thinking, like, looking back at my childhood photos of like my brother and I, we have so many of them. My mom would just take these like insane pictures of us, like our profiles, like on the lake, like me with like a flag. And I'm like, these are not normal childhood photographs, like black and white, like my arm, like cool, expressive. I'm like, this because my parents were gifted at photos. And so I have like amazing childhood photo albums because my parents were like professional photographers. And I just, you know, so that's all I saw growing up was like photographs like that, like stories being told through photos, the way my parents took them. And so when Ani was born, I bought Ben a really nice camera for like the first one we had owned as a couple. We got him this like cool mirrorless camera. And I just started taking photos of Ani, my baby, you know, like she's brand new. And I love taking pictures of babies and family and people. Like I love people because I'm capturing their story. I can see people through my lens and I love it so much. And I said this on stage at a wedding professional event just like a week ago. And I said what I love so much about photography was taking a picture of someone in such a way that told their story and then showing it to them and just saying like, look, like this is, look how beautiful you are. Like, and then having them be like even the most self-critical person seeing a photograph of themselves and then watching them kind of like have their breath taken away because they can't believe it's them. And it's not even because it's like an exceptionally like beautiful aesthetic photo, but it's like story and there's emotion captured and it's raw. And I just love that art so much. And then I realized that I still do the same thing in my work. I just put the camera down and now I'm doing it with words and I'm doing it with my own eyes. Yeah.
I'm so emotional right now. It's true. It's like, that's what you do like every time in a coaching call. It's just like, it's the way you just said, look, that's what you do. Sorry, I just like threw up crying. It just came out. But
let's just cry and puke together.
Because like that's what like it's so funny. It's like I always struggle with myself with like words, but like really the most most truest thing I could say is like this and look. Like that's it. Like I don't need to like explain it. Like I'm like here and that's what I do with the pictures. But like I think it's like so crazy that like yes, of course that's why your work is so powerful because yes, you use a lot more beautiful words and like you have like such a way of communicating, but essentially what makes it powerful is your ability to say, oh look, like look at you, like look at, but you want that, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Destroyed.
You know, it was a revelation for me too though, Bianca, because I'm on stage literally in a talk in front of 100 people.
When it came to you? Yes.
I'm like telling this story. I'm like, and this is why I did for wedding photography. Because I was like, had this idea. I'm like, oh, I got to open this talk like it was called the Relevant Workshop with the relevance of the fact that I know what they go through because I did this. And I remember being at people's weddings and I noticed like, oh, I don't actually want to be here. And I don't really want to do this. Like I liked the portrait stuff. I didn't like all the pomp and circumstance and all the requirements of the wedding stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was like so jarring because I'm thinking like, this is their most sacred day. And I'm like not having fun and I can't, that's out of integrity for me. Like I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
So I was like, pulled the ripcord real fast on that after I finished out my weddings and, but portrait. And now I just like love, I did like brand stuff for a little bit too. And which I love, I just love giving people that. And I'm more effective with it. I would say there's less in between now with like the purest of the essence of my spirit, getting to commune with people in that way. And it's this, but it's like the same gift. It just is expressing itself in a different medium now. And I've always been a seer. I've always been able to, and I know that the people listening to this podcast, like we are people, we see what is unseen. And it is such a sacred and precious gift. And it's something that people so deeply crave in some ways that they don't even recognize. It definitely is a risk, right? When I'm reflecting back to somebody, because sometimes I'll reflect something back that they're not ready to receive yet, you know? And I know you've had that experience. We talked about it with a shoot that you did where it was like, it took a minute for her to get it. And here's the other thing. I'm on the other side in my personal brand work where I have a lot of photo shoots. And I'll be totally honest with you, as of late, my photos with my beloved best friend, Lauren Bodwell, who's literally like one of my best friends on the planet, who has taken too many photos of me in my life, frankly. It's like I have 1 million photo albums from all the events and shoots and things we've done over the last 9 years together, you know? I haven't been loving my photos lately. And I said that to her and she's like, oh my gosh, that makes me feel really bad. And I was like, I know that would make you feel that way, but it's not about you. It's actually about me. It's about me and how I'm seeing myself. And there's something that's different and I'm having a hard time seeing it. Like I'm having a hard time receiving it. And that has been hard. I think that someone else captures you and then you get it back and it's like, oh, but what is it revealing? There's aspects of me that I'm still not accepting, or there are changes that are happening. Maybe it's through what I look like or whatever. I don't know. I honestly can't figure it out. But I said to her, I'm like, let's do a shoot, just you and me. And let's just play and let's just be us with nothing else. Like no one else in the room, just us like playing and trying things out and like coming into a new energy and a new story, because I think there's a new story to be told here, but this is feeling hard. And I really want to work with you on this. And she's like, yeah, me too. I'm like, this will be fun. You know, let's just play.
Yeah. Removing it was so beautiful that you shared that with her, because it's so easy to just harbor that because you don't want to hurt those feelings, but it's so powerful and important. You know, what I always say is, if you are looking for more powerful pictures, look less at the pictures. Like you're just exactly what you're saying. Like, let's just, what's the experience? It's just you and me. It's just, you know, like, and that just happens and no one wants to hear that. Like when someone's coming for like mentorship and like, how do you get emotive photos? Not by trying to get emotive photos. That's damn sure.
But I feel like, you know, what I've discovered, I think is like, there's a part of me that somehow, if I really like get into it, it's like, oh, it's interesting that maybe there's a part of me that has felt like I have to appear a certain way in myself. And Lauren's picking up on it. Like Lauren's picking up on it. Like you can't hide from that. Isn't that so interesting? And I'm like, whoa, what's that actually about? And I've wanted to just not look at them. But actually the medicine for me is, no, you actually have to look at it.
Such a gift that you could see it. Because you wouldn't be like, it would be harder to see it without this as the modality.
Because I just keep moving, you know, it's like, oh, throw on the filter and keep going. And so these are just like really interesting revelations. And going back to, you know, earlier questions that you asked, it's like, you have to find a way to exist in the uncomfortability without completely destroying yourself or like making yourself completely so small that it's like the part of you that can think you don't deserve anything or don't deserve to exist, you know? And it's like, I think that lives in every human. And I'm not afraid to say that out loud. It's like, I'm not afraid of anybody's emotions. All of you is welcome here. And I think that's a big part of the work I've embarked upon in this last year too, is focusing on the innate intelligence of our emotions and what they're bringing forward, because the emotions are the language of the body. And so when I feel devastated or I feel sad or I feel like an emotion that is not as much fun to be in, I will ask my clients in the same thing, like, okay, how do you be more of that? Like, show me what does that emotion move like? What does it do? How fast does it move? What sound does it make? and I've been doing mentorship with this amazing therapist and teacher. His name's David Bedrick, and he teaches process-oriented facilitation. And so I've been in his year-long program, just like learning this modality and learning how to help people tap into their innate wisdom. And that means like inclusivity within self, not taking, compartmentalizing different dimensions. Like if I feel sad about how my foot, it's like, what is that about? Like, what is the story that comes up there? Like what emerges? And it's not even for the need to change it, but for the need to actually just accept it, to look at it, to acknowledge
be with it. Yeah.
Because there's wisdom in it. Like it wouldn't be coming up if there wasn't something for you in it.
Yeah. Like being able to, you don't have to force yourself to like stare at it for a million years, but like if you keep looking away and if you stop taking photos and if you, I think about it as like taking permanent action on temporary feelings instead of just like being with it. Like I always tell the story of one time I used to have a huge problem with my profile. Like I hated it. There's like a tiny bump on my nose. I don't know. Everyone has their things. It's so dumb. And there's one for my whole life, as long as I can remember. And there was one photo last year where I was completely profile. I had my kids in my lap, completely profile. And I was like, I not only don't mind, but I like that. Like it's strong and it's distinct and I like it. I'm like, wow, what if for years I felt like that? What if I avoided photos for years just because of that? And all of a sudden, I don't give a shit anymore. That would have been a really hard pill to swallow, and I think that something, especially around photography in general, is that like, I think sometimes that we unknowingly are always looking at something through the lens of like what other people will see in that or what other people will think or like where this photo can live. But I think what's so unique about your position right now with like, you've done so many photos with, someone you're so close with, it's just like, it gets to be this living, breathing organism. It gets to be something where like, it doesn't have this formality of, oh, well, okay, here's a thing. It's very static. You're like, there's
no goal
with it. Let's breathe with it. There's not a goal because not everything you take is meant for sharing. Like it gets to be something for you to look at, like, what's here? Right. Something that I'm really curious about, it's a little bit of a sidetrack, but it's really rare to talk to someone who has parents that have documented their childhood in any sort of artful manner, So what do you think that did? And because you're so gifted with seeing, I'm just curious, what do you think growing up with that as a foundation of, look at me with that, like just more intentional photos. What do you think that did for your foundation and the way that you just grew up seeing?
Yeah, I think that it made it relevant, right? It made those different inflection points and chapters of my life. It like demarcates them because I think the way that my memory works, at least as an adult, I remember a lot. I do remember first person view of a lot of things, but like the photos jog it. And like, I can remember like being in my backyard sledding and hitting the fence and my dad making the joke about like, don't break the fence, you guys. I actually just sent out a bunch of VHS tapes to this like company and it put it in like this vault. And so I got to go and watch. It was like,
my favorite.
It was a whole thing. Oh my gosh. Of all these videos my parents had taken of us as kids. And it was like sad for me too, because Ben was like, I wish I had that. Like my parents didn't have a video camera. And I'm like, oh, I wish that we had that too, And it's like hilarious, like watching these different things, like watching, like I was biting my fingernails and my dad like smacks my hand out of my mouth. And I saw that in real time and I was like, oh wow, I would never do that to my kid. And I'm like, but that was just so normal. And what it showed me was like, there was like deep love. My parents had deep love for us, but it was also harsh love. There was also like a harshness in the love, like a, kind of that it wasn't like, it was like tender, but it was also hard. And so I think that I get to see how, like I'm hard with myself with love. I'm harsh with myself about love. I'm tender with my children, but I'm harsh with myself. And sometimes I'm harsh with my husband or I withhold or I'm rigid. There's like a rigidity. And I think like seeing those, being jogged by those images and those videos and all that, it reminds me, I can kind of transport back, and Ben's like, it's so crazy how, and getting a witness of my husband, like your parents, like they sound exactly the same. And he's like, and also like your dad then sounds like your brother now. And your mother then sounds like you now, like your voices are the same.
Wow.
So weird, right? So it's just like this sensory, multidimensional time warp thing happening. And I'm really grateful for it. And I also think, my mother is very, very sentimental and she's an artist. I mean, she's also used to do sketching and like beautiful sketches of the photographs that she would take, like of us. It's amazing. And she's also like this big music person. So she had this cassette tape and record collection that ran super deep. And she would play like a lot of instrumental music or like soundtracks of movies. A non-favorite of mine, but my brother and I make jokes about this with like Schindler's List was like a big one for her. And so like when she was really depressed, she would like put on Schindler's List and like go sit in the living room in the dark and just cry. And Jake and I would just be like, oh boy, we can hear some shit. Oh God. And be like, one of us would be like, I'm not going on. And so we would have like candlelit dinners like almost every night. Every night with music. That was my mom. Wow. And she worked. I don't know how. I'm like, Mom, I can hardly even scrape together an effing grilled cheese. Like I feed them. And then I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Like, I am terrible at this. Like, you're a superhero. How did you do that? Like you'd make beautiful meals. My mom was also like an incredible cook and she'd make these meals for us. And then she'd light the candles and she'd put on one of the soundtracks. And it's like, we would sit there and we listen to like Wyndham Hill or Narada or John, what's his face, all those soundtracks, John Williams. And it's like, so like music and memory, and there's such a sensory like world that I live in because it was what I was immersed in as a child, and like deep and sentimental. It's why I can cry at like the drop of a hat, everything makes me cry because I'm just like the beauty of it all. And there was a lot of complexity and there was a lot of really hard stuff growing up, but there was so much love too, even though it was harsh in some ways. It was like fierce love, if that makes sense.
My God. And the self-discovery that's made possible by these like visual artifacts is so like,
yes,
because they change, like as your eyes change through your experiences, your lens change, these things are static. So they're the same as they ever was or ever were, but like the meaning shifts and it's just like the most mind-blowing thing. So like the idea,
it could kill me. Bianca.
I know.
I could be like, just put me in the grave. Like the fact that they even exist, the fact that they even like dad is videoing us with his like big old thing on his shoulder in his short shorts back in the 90s. Right. Like mom's there, like, give him a turn, Amber. Like at the kites, we're like flying freaking what? Who goes and flies kites in a park with all the other people flying crazy kites? And we're like videoing and it goes in the bushes and my dad's getting it out. My mom's videoing and I'm just like, oh my, they literally bought a kite for us, brought the video camera, brought us to the park. I have like sunglasses on and like a cute outfit. My brother does too. Like my mom got the outfit, got the sunglasses, made sure we had all the things. We're at the park flying an effing kite. And like my parents' marriage was really tense. But like she was doing that. Yeah. Oh my God. I could just,
I know.
Cry. Oh.
And every part of it, every part of it. And like the idea that the push and pull with the artful photos that you have of yourself is this beautiful, like labor of love of, it's so evident of their love and like their adoration for you in those photos.
Yeah.
But then you also get to understand and witness the raw, because you can't edit the home videos. You're like, you see the hardness. So it's like, you're able to like have this full holistic understanding of like, oh my God, I make sense to me. I could cry. I make sense to me so much more through seeing this. And like, these have been around for years, but like all of a sudden you're like, I see it. Oh my God. Like I have so much more compassion for when I'm feeling so from my parents, because when I look at my home videos, my dad was not an artist. He took so many home videos with the thing on his shoulder. And like all of a sudden recently, in recent years, I realized, because with my photos, I almost feel like I can never get close enough And I was watching the home videos one day and I'm like, oh my God, he always starts zooming in, like I'm not like weirdly, like just like for no reason, just zooms in to faces. And I'm like, oh my God, I think I got that from him. I know. Like I got that from him. And like, I'm always like, can't get close enough to people's faces. So it's like, so funny that like, I'm an artist. My dad, quote unquote, wasn't, everyone's an artist, I believe, but he doesn't consider himself as not an artist. But like, it was embedded in me. And so like, you're able to recognize through this like visual history of yourself where those pieces came. So you can look at them with more love, like softer. You can look at them with, I see the hardness, but I also see the love. And like, it makes me like soften to this right now.
Oh, right. I can see more dimensions of this and thus understand myself in a more multidimensional way.
Oh, blah.
You know.
So now, fast forward, you're a mama, you're with your kids. Well, how are you like documenting?
I mean, I just want to eat them. There's also that. I just want to like chew on them, on their faces, their cheeks. There's that. But, I mean, yeah, like mamarazzi is my funny term when I'm like, listen, I'm the mamarazzi. That is my actual job. And you're going to thank me someday. So like, relax. And then sometimes I pull the camera out. It's but then it just like the pictures just sit on the thing forever. So it's fun to like have it in my hand and use the tool. But then it's like the translation time is poor Alex is the second born, he's like on the card. So thank goodness that the technology of the iPhone has improved dramatically because I've got lots of things happening there. We did do a photo shoot down in Florida where we adopted Alex on his 1-year birthday, which was so special. It was like so unexpected, but I was like, we need to do this. Like and the woman, we like met her while I was hosting my mastermind retreat, like 2 days before. I just met her, like taking pictures of people in the ocean. And I was like, do you do photo shoots? She's like, yeah. So then it was like, what's your Instagram? So then I found her and I was like, oh my God, she's amazing. I messaged her. I was like, we're going to be here till this day. Like, can we do a shoot on our last night? And she was like, yeah. So I ended up just finding this woman. And then she took these like miraculous pictures of my family with this incredible sunset that she goes, it's literally like the best sunset that I've ever had. It was like beams coming through and all these clouds. And it was just, the water was like teal. It was the cutest thing in the world. And so, yeah, I think I take so many things in my phone. It's just ridiculous. And I love it. And I think another part of it too is, Alex, we adopted Alex. And so we keep in touch with his birth mom. And so we created this account in this app. It's called Tiny Beans. And I put pictures, like I still do, like every week I put pictures of him in there and sometimes some videos. And I was saying to Ben, like we're in a moment right now where hasn't logged in for a while. So like sometimes she will a lot. And then sometimes she'll just like be gone for a while. And we're in one of those, like, she's gone again moments. And, I just like keep doing it, but I'm like she will have this resource always, like she'll always have access to this, but like Alex will have this.
Yeah.
It's like all these moments of his life, like from the first day that we met him, the 2 days after he was born, like this is always going to be here, like this is so sacred, so I think, perfect isn't the goal, but just documenting the chapters and the moments and the memories and being playful with it. And I love it all. It's just, I'm so grateful we have technology the way that we do now too.
It's funny. It makes me think of something that's been like ripe or like more on top for me. Is there was a story that actually Katie told me once, Katie Dragos, who's also in your coaching program. And she was saying there was this one day she was taking photos like by a lake with her friend and her son was holding her phone or something like that. I'm going to butcher it. Anyway, later on she looked and she had saw that he had taken photos of her and she was just sobbing, brought to tears, like at the idea of like how, like that he thought this is important. Like, this is my mom. But in reality, I think it's so funny that are so able to see that, like our little one take a photo of us. But like, that is us. That's us. Can we just witness ourselves in that? Like, look how beautifully you're, instead of like shaming yourself, I keep picking up my phone. Let me just be in the moment. It's like, let yourself see that it's gorgeous that you see it enough to be like, let me just do that.
And it's like, then you look back and you go, oh my gosh, like former self, I love you so much because you gave me these past photos which just is like my favorite thing in the world. I can never figure out how to like swipe to actually see it. Oh, that. Okay. Like, it's like, what? Like,
I know,
just weep together and all these pictures. Ani, like, on. Like, thanks iPhone for putting the like dramatic like music to it.
I know.
Like, why would I take these pictures of her? Like, gosh, look at us.
And like, look at that and think about her being your age looking at that. Like, what? I can't.
It's like right before Alex came. So it's like those inflection points too of like when these pictures and then, and then there he is, like, look at him.
And then everything changed.
And then everything changes, like the whole world changes. But there was an Ani that existed before her brother came into her world. And there were 8 years of that are just so important. And I love that this technology can do that, that it can like give us these gifts, these moments, like his first smoothie in Florida, or like with my dad, with his granddaughter. Oh, it could just kill me. And the fact that I can commune with it every day in this like easy way, I think it brings life closer to us in a lot of.
It brings life closer to us.
Yeah.
That's a quote. That's a quote card. We have ended up somewhere I didn't foresee, but of course. Anything else? Is there anything that like feels pressing right now? Is there anything that's been on your heart lately, in this world or out of this world? I don't care. That feels like really important, or something that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think that I just said this to a client earlier today. We were talking about this sort of the sacred spiritual nature of life. And in March of this year, so 1 year, Alex's first birthday, and a year after we adopted him, I got the word held tattooed on my wrist. And at first I knew I wanted to get something here that was like a reminder, but the word wouldn't emerge for me yet. I was like, I don't know. And I certainly wasn't going to rush it. And it just like kept coming. It was like held. And I think that I lived a lot of my life feeling like I wasn't held. Like I had to fight for survival. I was like gripping on so tight. And it's just like this amazing, because that's really the analogy I would say. Like, I feel like I was like holding on for dear life. And of course, right, when Alex came into my life and the way that all unfolded, after 7 years of infertility, 2 failed IVF cycles, of miscarriage, like literally just saying to the universe, like, my fertility is complete. I understand that now. And I'm like, this is so hard for me to surrender, but I just have to like let it go. And just feeling I'm 39 years old. Like, how am I letting that go? Like, I know I'm supposed to, my motherhood story is incomplete. And then by the grace, right, this miraculous story unfolds, and here comes Alex. And it just was like the master teaching, like brought everything together in my life of like all of these moments of things that didn't make sense. And, looking back, like, how did I meet Ben? I was like divorced. And then I met my husband, Ben, who's like the father of my children. And, Ani, and a near-death experience when she was born, and going through IUI to conceive her, and just like leaving my job and then building this business and meeting all the amazing friends and people that are in my life now, and like the unfolding of it all. And really what the word was just held, like because you've always been held. And so it's this idea that perhaps, like everything we're gripping on for dear life with, like we're just holding on so tight. But when it's like, it brings me back to like being a little kid. And like, I almost drowned when I was 3, and my dad saved me, and he just held me in the water. Like, I was like, I was under the water. And of course, Bianca, my mom has a picture of my dad holding me in the water right after. And like, he was like, we weren't going to take you out of the water because we wanted you to know that you were safe.
Oh God. Jesus.
Yeah. And so I invite us to think about, like the ways that we've been held, And the fact that we're here is the proof of that.
Yeah. Yeah. God.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Well, I don't even know how to wrap up after that one. Just end on that note. Can you share with us anything that you have going on right now? Anything you wanted to, all the links will be in the show notes. Amber has a new gorgeous website, like with her, there's some of her story on it, and that'll be in the show notes. But anything else you want to share about what's coming up? I mean, I'm in her Ignite program and I have been for, I don't know, I feel like I don't remember life before that, but just whatever you want to share about your work right now.
Yeah. You know, why don't I just read a poem just for fun?
Oh, yes, please.
Let's do that. Hold on. This is a
poem
good one.
From your book.
This is my book, Paddle Home. Yeah. And it has Lauren's beautiful pictures in it. There's one that's on this particular page. And I think, honestly, like these pictures are some of my most favorite pictures ever in this, and we did them all in black and white. We converted them if they weren't. I just went and like found them, look at that. And I will also say when we did this photo shoot, it was during the pandemic. It was almost felt like we shouldn't like be together. It was like at that point in the pandemic, it was like June or July of 2020, where it's like, oh, you like everybody good? We're good. It was, but Kristen and Lauren came over and I just like got in the water and we did this shoot. And I didn't know that this was for Paddle Home when I did it. Like the book wasn't even a poetry book yet. Like I was just writing poems. In my journal. Yeah.
This was just like a one-off shoot. Like what was
we were going to use them on my website and for my branding. And so like half the shoot is like in my home office, like in the kitchen, like just playing and doing different things with some of the different dresses that I had. And then at the end, I was like ones with the trees on our land here. And then I was like, I had bought this pink dress. And then Lauren's like, we like just go in the water. And then she was like really pushing me more. It was so freaking cold too. Like the water, it must have been like May. The water was still freaking cold. And I got in there and Kristen came in and was like my lifeguard at one point because my dress was like wrapping around my legs. And I was like, oh my God, I can't swim. Like it's freezing cold and I'm like going to drown in this stupid dress. So yeah, it was really funny. Like it's like one of our favorite memories we laugh about. But yeah, we just went and we were playing and we were co-creating. And then this shoot came and then all these pictures were like the theme, of what the book is like about. And then there's other ones that Lauren's done all these pictures. So I was like, I'm just going to weave these throughout. And then I have like these pages, like little black quotes and step and repeat sort of phrases and things throughout. It just was such an artistic expression to create this book in this way.
So gorgeous. So
yeah, let me read this one because I opened to it and it just feels very Bianca-esque for me to read a poem called Heartbreak.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Each breath is a chance to begin again. Each tiny expression of love and every thought that stretches a heart beyond its storied armor is a beginning. May we give ourselves boundless grace and infinity chances at loving ourselves through the fog of our own disappointments. May we have the courage to face our heartbreak in all its glory, for the break cannot exist without the love.
Are you looking for the award for the most amount of times making me cry?
Crying with you. I'm like, shit, who wrote that? I'm like, we were talking about disappointment and I didn't even realize that was going to do that. I just opened up to it. Oh my gosh.
Disappointment, heartbreak, seeing yourself. That was the most relevant.
I mean, I just flipped it open. It was there. So again, we're just not in charge. And when you live like you're not in charge of how it's all going to unfold, man, it gets so good. It gets so good. And it does also feel like a risk. So I want to say that it feels like a risk, but I think you come to the point where you realize there is no other option. And
the biggest risk is living to some vague whatever, and then coming to the end of your life and realizing that what the real risk was. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, you can get the paddle on Amazon and you can go to my website, amberlilyestrom.com, check out Ignite Your Business. You get to hang out with Bianca. Yeah, I mean, I'm here to help. And I just happen to be somebody who is a seer, and I know a lot about business and marketing and humanity and psychology and all those things. And why I love business is because it gives us, humans are here to create things. Like, we are innately, just like put a kid with a piece of paper or a stick in the sand and they're going to draw something. It's just how humans are wired. It's to create. And so I love that so much. And I believe our businesses are like those beautiful things that there's duality in that they can create something to change the course of history, to shift humanity, to further the evolutionary process for us in a positive and beautiful, reflective way, because we create what improves, I think, by and large. And it's like our signature, it's our legacy to create something that makes things better as a result of the healing we've gone through. And then secondly, it provides us with the monetary support we need to exist in this modern society, which relies on money. And that's important too. And I know how to help people kind of do that and both. And I just love it because it's like, it gets to be your contribution and your signature, and also gets to support your family. And so I think it's a very sacred way to love people and bring people together who are here to actually create things, to actually make things new. I want to hang out with those people because they're the visionaries and the dreamers, and they're taking they're alchemizing what's inside, and they're trying to create new ways of existing. And it's so fun. Yeah.
You hold people as you help them learn how to hold themselves and their all of it, and like uncovering the choice and being able to see like how you can alchemize, beautiful word, like the and both and the everything and the nothingness of like what's true for them.
Yeah.
Amber, thank you so much. I am so honored to have you on here. I can't even tell you. And I'm so glad that we got to get together and have this conversation. So thank you.
Me too. Love you, sister. Thank you.
Love you too much.
If you enjoyed this episode and want to get in on actual conversations with me, join the Help Me See podcast private Facebook group. Every Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, I'll be hopping on live for Q&A on the latest episode, and for free consulting if you need a bit of help thinking about ways to save your memories. Did you get something out of this episode? I really, really, really hope you did, and I would love to hear from you. I'm on a mission to empower you to feel peace knowing that you are not missing your life. One of the best ways that you can support me is leaving a review, and honestly, I'd rather hear about the memory you saved because of this podcast rather than any kind of accolade. Tell me how this podcast has impacted you, and 1, I'll probably cry. And 2, I'd love to give you a shout out on the show. Take a minute and head out to the link in the bio to write a review now on the podcast.